how to make Valentine's Day Buttermilk bar donuts and Munchkin donut hole treats. Let's get into it. First, we're going to make our buttermilk. Put 3/4 of a cup of milk into a small bowl, along with either 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar or lime juice. Any of those will work. Give everything a good mix and put this aside for at least 10 minutes, but we're definitely going to leave this here until we use it, and it might take longer than 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is definitely the minimum. It's okay if it curdles, it's supposed to do that. Next, you want to melt a 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of butter in the microwave until fully melted. When it's fully melted, just put this aside and let it rest for a minute to cool down. Now before we get started, I just want to highly recommend that you have at least 2 boxes of cake flour before we get started. This recipe makes it seem like we're going to need a lot of it for dusting because this dough is actually kind of sticky. For the main recipe, we're going to need at least 3.5 cups anyway, so you're definitely going to need a lot regardless. Now in a medium to large size bowl, we are going to add 3.5 cups of cake flour. Next, we're going to add 2 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. A 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 3/4 teaspoons of nutmeg. Whisk everything until well combined. Put this aside till we're ready to use it. Next, in your stand mixer fitted with a paddle, you're going to add your melted cooled butter, 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Beat on medium speed with your paddle attachment until light and fluffy. Don't forget to scrape down your spatula and don't forget to scrape down your paddle attachment and your bowl with a rubber spatula. When your mixture is light and fluffy, you want to reduce your mixer speed to low, and 1 egg plus 3 yolks, 1 at a time until fully combined. Now I'm using liquid yolks just to make it easier so I don't waste a lot of the whites from like whole eggs. If you want to buy this, it's about 54 grams. Or roughly 1/4 cup. Mix in all of your eggs on low speed until everything is well combined. Next, you want to add all of your buttermilk mixture and mix again on low speed until well combined. When your buttermilk is fully incorporated, you want to add all your flour mixture into your bowl all at once. Be careful when you're pouring so it doesn't puff out everywhere. Mix your flour mixture in your bowl on low speed until just mixed. Try not to overmix. Once you see the flour disappear, you're done. This dough will probably be very sticky, so that's totally fine. And for fun, while the mixer is going, I'm going to add a little bit of this neon pink food coloring since it's almost Valentine's Day. This part is optional, you don't have to add food coloring. This is mostly an experiment. But of course, feel free to try it yourselves with any color you'd like. Donuts should be fun. So fair warning, this dough is very soft and sticky, but that's okay. That's the recipe says it's supposed to be like that. Don't forget to scrape down the sides of your bowl. Let your dough chill in the fridge for at least an hour or overnight. Now when you're ready to start rolling out your dough, take it out of the fridge and heavily flour your work surface and your hands with cake flour. Also, you want to get at least 2 large cookie sheets and line them with wax paper. With a rubber spatula, you want to scrape out your donut dough onto your floured surface and top it with more flour. This dough is very sticky, so don't be afraid with your cake flour. It shouldn't turn out hard or anything like that for the final product. Flour your hands and start patting out your dough till one even thickness, maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little bit thicker. You don't want your donuts to be too thick. Don't forget to add more flour to your dough as well as your hands as it's needed. As you can tell, mine is already starting to get sticky again, so I'm gonna have to add a little bit more. Now again, because it's almost Valentine's Day, I'm gonna use this heart-shaped cookie cutter I have. Feel free to experiment with other cookie cutters. It should be fine, but I think this cookie cutter might be a little too big, but that's okay. Don't forget to flour your cookie cutter as well so they don't stick. If you don't want to use a cookie cutter, that's totally fine. Just cut your dough into either squares or rectangles. Or use biscuit cutters for circle donuts or triangles, whatever you want. I can't stop you. Once you've cut out your donut shapes, lightly brush off the flour from both sides of your donut. Excess flour at this point is not necessary. And place it onto your cookie sheet, lined with wax paper. Repeat with all dough. If you guys have a lot more scraps, if you're using cookie cutters, just knead it up real quick, very lightly, and pat out your dough again. Now towards the end, if you guys have scraps like this where it's too small for any cookie cutter, don't throw them away. Turn them into like munchkin donut holes. Just take a blob, roll it up in your hands, form a ball. Definitely don't waste these. Now once you got all of your donuts and your munchkin donut holes ready to go, you want to start heating up about 2 to 4 cups of oil, vegetable oil, till it gets to about 350 degrees. When your oil is hot enough, drop your donuts and your donut hole munchkins into the hot oil and cook for try 1 to 2 minutes on each side or until they are nice and golden and fully cooked through. Be very careful because the oil will probably splash out at you, which is why I'm using a deep pot and I didn't fill it halfway, filled it way less. Carefully fry all of your donuts and munchkin holes, and when they are nice and golden, you want to lift them out of the pan, let the excess oil drip off, and put them on your cookie sheets so they can drip off and cool down. Repeat with all donuts and donut holes. Now when you're done frying, you can tell that I burned my first batch, but as you keep going, you see how nice they look. Also, let's break one open to see what it looks like. Nice and pink, fully cooked on the inside. Let your donuts cool down for a couple of minutes while we make our glaze. Now in a small to medium-sized bowl, depending how much glaze you're going to make, you're going to add about 1 to 2 cups of powdered sugar. Next, feel free to add about a tablespoon of extract of choice. It doesn't have to be vanilla, it could be any flavor you like. Just keep in mind, like if, for example, I forgot to mention it in the main recipe, but if you wanted to flavor your donuts a certain flavor, you could do that. Just keep in mind all flavor profiles. Now here's the really tricky part, the water. The trick is that you want your glaze thick enough for donuts, but you want it thin enough to glaze your donuts, but you don't want it too thin or too thick. So I'd say start off with maybe 4 tablespoons and then start off using teaspoons of water until you get to the consistency you'd like. You want to start mixing your glaze as well as you start adding your water, a little bit at a time. Now don't panic if you add too much water and it gets too thin. Just add more powdered sugar and then it'll thicken it back up. And the same goes for the opposite direction. If it's too thick and you want it a little bit thinner, just add a little bit more water. Glaze like this is very forgiving. You don't have to worry too much about like, oh no, I ruined it and I have to start completely over. You can just kind of adjust it as you need to go. Like this, I definitely put too much water, so I'll have to add more powdered sugar. Now this might be obvious, but my glaze is kind of brownish because my vanilla extract is kind of brownish. Feel free to buy a clear vanilla extract if you prefer. I just so happen to like and prefer the vanilla extract brand that I bought. This consistency is almost perfect. Maybe a little bit thicker would be better, but that's up to you. Now this last part is up to you, whether you want to dunk your entire donut or just the tops. But while your donuts are still a little bit warm, take your donut, dunk it into your glaze, let the excess drip off, and put it back onto your cookie sheet to let the glaze set up and harden. Now I highly recommend you should definitely glaze your donuts. The glaze will help keep your donuts moist and they will last longer and they won't dry out as fast. But it's up to you. You don't have to glaze them if you definitely don't want to. But if you do want to, repeat with all donuts. Again, you can glaze the whole thing or just the top, it's up to you. Also, I almost forgot to mention, if you want to decorate your donuts with like colored sprinkles or anything else, feel free to add them on while your glaze is still a little bit wet so they can stick to your donuts. Once your glaze sets up about an hour or two, serve and enjoy. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody!